brothers and sisters, we've all turned up the radio to hear Brother Jimmy Lakey, from coast to coast and shore to shore. Now raise your voice. Oh, let us all, Jimmy Lakey, get out of bed. Jimmy Lakey, raise your voice. Jimmy Lakey, Lakey, hey, can't live without it with Jimmy Lakey. Jimmy Lakey.
Oh, good morning to you, everybody. How in the hell are you? Back in the hotel room I am, still traveling and gallivanting around, so we're not in the usual studio, but glad to have you here to the Lakey Unleashed streamcast. People are gathering from all the platforms around America and really around the globe. Hello, Bangladesh. We always love it when the Bangladeshis check in on us. We've got the YouTubes now firing. It just went live there. YouTube, good morning. Come one, come all, come see us. YouTube, we haven't been thrown off in about 3 weeks. We haven't used the word vaccinations too often to get the YouTubers all upset, so we're still on YouTube. We're also on the Twitter or the X machine, and people are gathering there. We can see the numbers climbing up on all the platforms. Facebook, lots of places. Facebook.com/Jimmy Lakey fan page. Facebook.com/Jimmy Lakey fan page. Facebook.com/The Media Equalizer. And also, we've got Facebook.com/Red Wave America. We're all streaming on all these platforms. And I'm probably missing a few. Hello, Rumble. How's everybody doing on the Rumble this morning? Rumble, if you haven't noticed, if you're just joining us, yes, that is fantastic hotel room artwork. That's the beautiful thing about the Lakey Unleashed streamcast. No longer bound by the confines of corporate radio. I've been freed from that, unleashed, as they say, and I can do the show from anywhere. And I'm in the Dallas-Fort Worth area right now, caring for some family matters, and my mother's up there in years, helping her out with some things. So I'm here a couple of more days. I'll be back in the studio at the House of Lakey and the Lakey Entertainment Towers by next week. But for now, here I am. Good to have you here. All right, a lot of great guests coming up on the show. I'm going to talk DEI. That's coming up here on the program at about 8:15. DEI is going to be a topic of conversation. How academia and how it's really toppled and caused damage to the reputation and the accuracy of higher education. We'll talk to Dr. Stanley K. Ridgely about that in just a moment. Steve Laffey also joins us as he does every week at this time. Steve Laffey, the real smart fellow that he is. We're talking about Poland, nuclear weapons, and also going to talk about Al Gore's head is exploding. It's going off the charts. He can't handle it. All right, anybody watch the astronauts land last night? God bless Elon Musk for saving America's bacon. Elon goes out there with his SpaceX and picks up these astronauts that have been stranded there for a 7-day. It's like a Gilligan's Island. It was a 3-hour tour, but they ended up there for 9 months, and it's not a good sign. And the more and more is told about that. It was said before that they were left up there for political reasons. And the astronauts said, we don't believe that. We just got stuck. Oopsie daisy. We got stuck. Well, it turns out that evidently Elon Musk had gone to Joe Biden. Joseph Robinette Biden had gone to Joe Biden and said, hey, Joe, we can get the astronauts back. I know the Boeing craft had a little bit of problem. They're stuck up there. Do you want us to go get them? And Joe Biden, maybe by auto pen, maybe in person, Joe Biden actually denied the request or even didn't accept the invitation for Elon Musk's SpaceX to go rescue these astronauts. And the reason that he didn't do it was because they knew that Elon Musk was supporting Donald J. Trump by that point, and they didn't want to paint any Donald Trump supporter in a good light. If you don't believe that the heart of certain people in Washington, D.C., or people that used to be in Washington, D.C., if some hearts are more eviler than others, you just have to think of that. Willing to leave these astronauts out in space, stranded, that's part of the training. They took it like champs and they're professionals, but they had the opportunity to come home early. And Joe Biden's administration said, no, you're not coming home early, because they are very much afraid of the looking of Elon Musk back before the administration was elected. So they just didn't want to have any Elon Musk. They didn't want to look like Donald Trump and his team were being heroes and saving America, and Joe Biden couldn't. Well, we do know that Joe Biden couldn't save America. And Joe Biden couldn't even close a freaking border. All we needed was a new president, as President Trump has said. But it was really disgraceful. The more we learn, first of all, beautiful scene to watch that craft splash down in the ocean, the dolphins jumping up around it. And I don't know what that splash feels like. It doesn't look like it hit too hard, but it doesn't look like there's much visibility. So I'm guessing they're just watching some meters inside to see how close they are. Then you feel the point of impact. That's got to be a real trippy feeling of free falling. And you think the parachutes have deployed, but there's probably no sense of gauging of how fast you're moving. So that's got to be just nerve-wracking. I'm just trying to picture myself as a claustrophobic person being in that spacecraft coming down, spiraling to Earth with parachutes slowing you down, but you don't have the vantage point and you have no control over it. You're just at the mercy of the mechanism around you. What a fantastic rescue that was last night. And shame on Joe Biden, shame on everyone that if you had the opportunity to get these people earlier and you did not save them, you did not rescue them, you left them stranded there for political reasons. Again, some hearts are more evil than other hearts. And Joe, that would probably include you and your auto pen. And I start reading those JFK assassinations, by the way. Oh, by the way, don't forget the chat room. All the platforms we're on this morning. You can comment and make comments to us. You can say nice things. You can say polite things. You can tell me that you don't like my hotel artwork. I apologize. We don't have a roving set that travels everywhere with me. You can tell producer Chad that you don't like meme roulettes and he needs to do better. You can say whatever you want, but please say it. We want to hear a free speech organization. This is like Twitter or the former, that's X. We're not Twitter now. We like to say things. So you can say things on Facebook, comment in the sections. You can comment on Facebook. You can comment on X. You can comment on Rumble. You can comment on all the platforms, and it goes right into our studio. And producer Chad and the little elves that work with him are looking through and seeing which ones bear worthiness to go on the screen. You know you're special if producer Chad and the little working elves there get you up on the screen. We used to call them working midgets, but we're not allowed to call them midgets anymore, I'm told. So we call them working elves, as if producer Chad has a little Santa's workshop going on over there. So you are more than welcome to a comment, and we'd love to see some of those. All right, let me go to the JFK files. Anybody follow this? It's fascinating. 60 plus years they've kept this stuff from us. 60 plus years they've said, you as Americans are not savvy enough and privy enough to know this. Only the most elite of the elite get to see this. No one got to see it. Our government was keeping secrets from us. And they did it. We've talked about this on the program. Any person that might have been named in the original files is probably long since gone or has one foot in the grave and the other a banana peel. I mean, it's pretty much the end of life for that lifespan 60 years later. And so you knew that they were protecting, I guess, institutional integrity. Well, here's what we know. People are going through 80,000 pages, I think, of this. People are going through them. And here's one of the summations that I got last night. The U.S. government declassified a massive trove of JFK assassination files. And some of the things they're initially finding are beyond explosive. After an initial deep dive, this is a blogger, researcher called Chirion.org. They said you can dig in and you will see a program, CIA program. It's named Zerrifle, Z-R-R-I, Zerrifle, basically Zerrifle. Zerrifle was a CIA-run covert operation. It's designed for black ops, assassinations, and false flag operations. It was active during JFK's presidency. It's the same era where CIA was conducting secret plots against foreign leaders and clashing with the White House over its unchecked powers. So this is back in the day. JFK and the CIA were clashing. The CIA thought they were pretty much autonomous and they could do what they wanted and didn't have to have checks and balances. And they had a project called ZRRIFLE. The key findings are finding the CIA black budget was funding for assassination operations, safe houses, fake identities, proof of off-the-book operations that were never meant to see daylight. Scrolling through the 80,000 initial cursory look, they're finding a directive to firm the Soviets or the Czechs if things go wrong, a textbook false flag operation meant to manipulate Cold War geopolitics. Criminal recruitment. The files confirmed that the CIA was working directly with narcotics traffickers, known spies, and organized crime. They have reference to the magic button. And the magic button in the JFK assassination files is an unknown term that was tied to execute action with instructions to never write down the word assassination. Instead, they referred to it as the magic button. They had extreme secrecy protocols at the CIA, no paper trails, no discussion inside CIA buildings, and no connection to government channels. The list goes on. And this is just the first look of the first few hours through there. The CIA was running at the time, according to the files, off the books assassination programs. They were recruiting criminals and spies for covert missions. They planned for false flag cover-ups if things went south. They were operating without oversight at the exact same time of JFK's murder. There's another interesting portion of the JFK files. I think you will find that JFK Jr., you can find this at the Geller Report, JFK Jr. in a memo back in 1994, in 1994, issued a statement that said envelope was postmarked Worcester, Massachusetts, bearing the handprinted address of Senator Joe Biden. And it said, "Dear Senator Biden, you are a traitor." Now, they're trying to figure out what this means and why there was a letter saying that you're a traitor from John F. Kennedy Jr. to Joseph Rubilon Robinette Biden. So this is going to get real interesting, my friends. I don't know if you realize it. I really believe we are. We are watching history unfold. Most of us, for our entire lifetime, the JFK assassination theory and theories have been shrouded in mysticism and secrecy. And now we're finding out, and we were always told that if you were, we were always told that if you believed in the grassy knoll and other things happening, then you were a conspiracy theorist, that it had to be Lee Harvey Oswald, and he acted alone and independently. And it turns out there's a lot of things in these files about Oswald as well. So hold on, my friends. It's going to get real interesting over the next couple of weeks. Anybody else been reading them? What do you, if you have, we're going to comment on them. We'll have some guests on in the next couple of days as people can dive into these 80,000 pages of sheer gloriousness. It's crazy. Let's see. There's comments coming in. Don't forget you can comment. Good morning. By the way, it's hump day. Today's the last day of winter. I'd like you to know today is the last day of winter. Tomorrow will be the first day of spring. So hello, spring. We're ready for you to spring upon us. Did I see somebody made a reference to the Punta Gorda again? Is Punta Gorda, Florida out there? Punta Gorda, we have a big following of 2 in Punta Gorda, Florida. And that's always fun. That's a great place to have the following, is Punta Gorda, Florida. All right, I've got another story. I'm traveling here and I'm in Texas. And I will talk about this later on after we talk to Steve Laffey. But those of you who are in Texas, you may hear, it's been in the news, every newscast I've turned on to, there's the state legislature is having a rare session. They only meet like every decade or something in Texas for the state legislature. They're running a bill through the legislature that basically is going to outlaw furries. A furry are mentally ill, attention-starved children that dress up like animals and go to the public school system, and they identify as a cat. There have been photos, some people say it's urban legend, that even go to, if they identify as a cat, they have a litter box. And we've always been told that this doesn't happen. As a matter of fact, if you recall, back in almost 3 years ago, when Heidi Ganahl was running against Jared Polis in the state of Colorado, Heidi Ganahl said we have public school systems that are distracting in their learning. Their test scores are down, but kids are allowed to identify as animals. And our feckless, foolish, idiotic governor, Jared Polis, who was running for a second term, said there's no such thing as a furry. That's a made-up mythical thing. Those don't even exist. No one's into furryism. I think is what you call it, furryism. And he gaslit and said there's nothing to see here. Well, evidently there is something to see here, because the entire state of Texas, they're running a bill that will pass through the legislature that basically says that you cannot dress up and identify as an animal. You got to go as a human being. You're a boy or a girl, period, the end. You're not a cat. You're not a dog. You're not a camel. You're not an animal. There's no furryism allowed in the public school system. And so it is amazing that it is a problem. As a matter of fact, I remember I had, during that time, I was still on the radio, terrestrial radio, and I had somebody call up and tell me on the show, they said, yes, there are furries. Jared Polis is a lying sack of Jawea. Yes, he is. He's a lying sack of something, because this mom said her son, she was called to the school by the middle school principal that her son was barking at a child, barking a child. Mom gets called up to the school, and the mom says, well, what's going on? Well, that's a furry, and she's a cat, but your son keeps barking at her. Well, what's a furry? Well, she's dressed up as a cat today, and that's how she's identifying today. But your son can't keep barking at her all day. And the mom replied to the principal, who's an idiot and probably a Biden voter, I guess. I don't know. She replied to the principal and said, if she can identify as a cat, my son identifies as a dog, and that's all he can do is bark. I thought that was a great answer. But Jared Polis said there's no such thing as furries. It's a big deal here in Texas. They're banning the furries in the public school. It's going to go through the legislature. And there's your flashback. Now, think of this. Those of you listening nationally, and we're going to go to my first guest here in just a second. But listen, those of you listening nationally, in a couple of years, you're going to hear of the name Jared Polis, who's our idiotic governor. He has a big case of arousal every time he looks at Gavin Newsom. And he loves the radical policies. He wishes he could speak. He wishes he could grow the hair. He wishes he had the waistline. And Jared is a worthless governor. He's pathetic. He has really done more damage. I've been here 20, almost 30 years in the state of Colorado since I was a wee young tyke. And he's destroyed this state more than any other same period of time. It's gone downhill very quickly in those 7 years. And it's much to the thanks of Jared Polis and his husband, Marlon. And Marlon's a piece of work himself. Well, Jared is the guy who gaslit and said, there are no furries in the school. There's no furries. He also hates women. And he looked at Heidi Ganahl and said, honey, why don't you run for the school board? Why don't you start there? And in other words, you're not big enough to be the governor. He's just a rich fat kid, and fat being an operative word there that doesn't like being challenged, has a bad record with ladies as well. Thus, he has a husband. So I tell you this, but here's what you got to know. He gaslit on furries. He gaslit and said, there are no furries. There are no furries. There's nothing to see here. This is the same governor, fast forward just about a year ago or less, in which when we found out that Tren de Aragua, the gang from Central America, was operating and taking over buildings in Aurora, Colorado, the same governor that said there's nothing to see here, there's no furries, is the same governor that said there is no Tren de Aragua, there's nothing happening in Colorado. In other words, when Jared Polis is speaking, you need to remember that name nationally, when Jared Polis is speaking, Jared Polis is lying. Jared Polis is incapable of telling the truth, especially when it exposes his failed and feckless policies. He denied the furries in schools 3 years ago. He denied the Venezuelan gangs. He denies everything because he doesn't want to own up to his own fecklessness and failed administration. There, I feel better about that. All right, we'll come back to that topic in just a minute. Don't forget, if you would, to make comments, chats, and we'd love to have all those chats coming in on the Media Equalizer page. Good morning to everybody out there. The Red Wave America's got a little population going as well on Facebook. X, you're a little slow this morning. X is usually about triple those numbers by now. So everybody get on the ball on the X, the tweeter machine, and get your tweeter rolling. Hey, the fan page is working, the facebook.com/Jimmy Lakey fan page. All right, let me bring in my first guest of the morning. He's our 8:15 guest, so I'm 4 minutes behind schedule. Dr. Stanley K. Ridgely, 8:15 Mountain Time. That'd be 10:15, so we're at 4 minutes behind on the East Coast. Dr. Stanley K. Ridgely is the author of DEI Exposed: How the Biggest Con of the Century Almost Toppled Higher Education. He's a clinical full professor of strategic management at Drexel University, holds a doctorate and master's in international relations. Dr. Stanley K. Ridgely is waiting patiently. There he is. Good morning, Stanley. Doctor.
Hey, good morning. How you doing, Jim? It's a great show. I'm enjoying the privilege of being on your show, talking to you and your erudite audience, and ready to talk some DEI.
DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. First of all, is that national nightmare over? Have we finally turned the corner? Are they still going strong in the world of academia?
Well, I think the louts on the campuses are trying to convince us that the nightmare is over. And they're simply burrowing underground, renaming their offices, renaming their titles, and keeping their lavish salaries. So I think we're going to have to keep stay on the qui-vive, as we'd say, and trust in our administrations, the Department of Education, to keep the pressure on our universities to bring them into oversight, and to continue to, through the efforts of you and people like myself, I hope, to pull away the mask that is covering DEI and to expose it, and one hopes to expunge it altogether.
It's amazing these universities seem to be doubling down, even with the threat of funding, even with the threat. First of all, I want to back up. I don't understand why universities with these huge $1 billion of endowment are still getting government funding. Can you explain that to me? Why do they even need our money? Why are we funding their propaganda centers when they have their own endowments? Let them spend their own money. Help me with that one.
Well, there are two categories. We have publicly funded universities, and we also have private universities, which are also publicly funded by virtue of federal research grants and students attending those universities on student loans that are federally funded. And then, of course, the private sector, the public schools are funded directed by these are land grant universities funded by the states in which they reside, plus federal funding as well in the form of grants. So why are we continuing to fund these universities to the tune of millions of dollars when these universities are basically nonprofit organizations, that they don't pay taxes on their endowments? Some universities pay a very small 1.4% tax on their endowments, special cases. But this is one of the initiatives of the new administration, the new presidential administration, to bring these universities under the U.S. tax code. You guys are engaged in political partisanship. And moreover, your endowments are growing massively without any taxation. You admit students, you offer no guarantees of that these students will have jobs, while at the same time charging them exorbitant tuition and running their debt up to the tune of millions of dollars in toto. So what we see the Trump administration doing is saying, you know what, we're going to look at this and see if we can't begin to tax your endowment of say around 35%. If your endowment is above $1 billion, that's with a B, $1 billion, we're going to look real hard at you to find out if we can start to taxing that. You know, Harvard's endowment is around $56 billion. It's growing every year. There are no taxes on it. And that's one perfect example of the kind of source of income the federal government could use to really shore up some of these deficits that we've been running up under, say, the previous administration, and really all administrations over time.
If you're just listening right now, I know some of you are pretending to be working in the cubicle, roaming the airports. I know a couple of people work at airports, and you're walking around and you're pretending to work, but you're really listening. The voice of Dr. Stanley K. Ridgely. His book is called DEI Exposed: How the Biggest Con of the Century Almost Toppled Higher Education. Dr. Ridgely, we hear DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, and we understand, we have these DEI hires, people that probably shouldn't have jobs, getting jobs because of their initiatives to have diverse, equity, and inclusive people. But now on the college campuses, we have a lot of anti-Semitism. We have the Columbia University protest, anti-Semitism. Is the DEI programs that have lasted for the longest time, is that linked to, does 1 + 1 = anti-Semitism?
Well, they're very clearly linked. That doesn't require anyone connecting the dots. It's clearly linked in the sense that the pro-Hamas demonstrators on these campuses, which are exhibiting gross anti-Semitism, sometimes behind the little fig leaf of, oh, this is anti-Israeli policy, or this is simply a protest for the BDS boycott, disinvestment, and sanctions movement against Israel. Oh, no, it's not. We all know it, anti-Semitism when we see it. And it's certainly connected to DEI in the sense that DEI offices have made it very clear that Jewish students do not deserve the protections that are codified with this so-called DEI program. Why? Regardless of the assault, the vandalism, the trespass, the threats, the bullying of Jewish students by pro-Hamas demonstrators on campuses, you do not qualify for our protection. Why? Because you are considered part of the oppressor class of white people. And all white people are part of the oppressor class and are, by definition, villains. So it doesn't really matter the reality of the situation that you are experiencing. Oppression, threats, bullying, assault, doesn't matter. Our theory tells us and tells everyone else here that you are an oppressor. And so this is the mantra that DEI has employed on the college campuses. And you'll find an awful lot of individuals who are clearly anti-Semitic. Some have been dismissed at Columbia. Others have been dismissed around the country when they slip up and think that no one's really listening to them, and then make their anti-Semitic comments. So yeah, there is a clear connection. It's almost like that.
Yeah. Your book is called DEI Exposed: How the Biggest Con of the Century Almost Toppled Higher Education. I want to dive into the heart of the book, because your book isn't just talking about, oh, DEI bad, but you walk through kind of a process of how we ended up here. Who were the con men? Who were the con people? How did we end up gripped by this DEI cult, if you will? Take us back. Where did it start? Who unleashed the monster?
Well, it started, several decades ago, but more recently, in the last 5 years, since the George Floyd riots of 2020, the left, progressive left, saw its opportunity to move on to the campuses in the same way that Jesse Jackson used to blackmail corporations back in the 80s and then 90s by saying, "Hey, that's a nice company you have there. Be ashamed if something happened to it." Well, in the same way, BLM types said, "It's a nice university you've got there. Too bad you've got rampant racism on your campus. We can fix that for you. Bring us onto the campuses," us being the DEI grifters. "We're going to train your people up, and we're going to teach them how to be anti-racist." Well, DEI is a big fraud. It's nothing but lies. The average person, the good people on all sides, right, basically think that DEI is about creating a level playing field. Oh, it's about giving everyone a shot at the American dream. It's only teaching about race or teaching about diversity, teaching about slavery. No, it's none of those things. That's what they say in the front stage. In the backstage, it's about teaching and inculcating in students, faculty, and staff a hateful ideology in which America is a racist, irredeemably racist country. It is riven with white supremacy culture, and that all white people are racist. All people of color, as it's convenient, are victims of this doctrine. And we're going to train you. We're going to train you, your students, faculty, and staff, to understand this white racist America, and that you white folks are guilty, and that you people of color, as it's convenient. I should say that because Asian Americans are sometimes people of color, and they're sometimes white adjacent, depending on what the DEI people are trying to accomplish. And so that's the reality of DEI, training people into this primitive ideology, which is binary, Manichaean, good and evil, oppressors and oppressed, exploiters and exploited, which really is a bastardization of the very familiar doctrine of Karl Marx, Marxism. It's just recodified, it's renamed, and I think we can expect some more of this deceit as we move forward.
All right, so the book is called DEI Exposed: How the Biggest Con of the Century Almost Toppled Higher Education. You say almost toppled higher education as if you think maybe we're holding it back from teetering over the edge?
Yes, indeed. We were teetering at the edge until January 20th, when the new administration took over and immediately issued executive orders addressing the DEI problem, deciding, of course, that the administration should do the right thing and hold universities accountable. I should say that the folks on these campuses will not go quietly. They are well paid. They are well heeled. They have lots of power, and they're extending their influence throughout the various campuses. When I say well paid, I'm referring to people like Tabia Shavu Sellers at University of Michigan, receiving $417,000 of taxpayer money to administer DEI at the University of Michigan campus. I'm referring to the top two folks at University of Virginia, receiving over $500,000 each to administer DEI. The person right below them receives over $400,000 from the University of Virginia. The governor, Glenn Youngkin, only receives $175,000 a year for administering the affairs of the state. So these people are well-heeled. They are receiving lots and lots of taxpayer money, and they're up to no good. And I think that is slowly being revealed. We are going after them just in the nick of time, I think, before they have taken over the campuses, in the sense that DEI people are telling faculty, who to hire, what to teach, what is in the curriculum, because that's where we were headed, and some universities went that way and now have drawn back. So, Jimmy, I'm delighted to be able to report that there is a reason for optimism.
Dr. Stanley K. Ridgely, one more quick question for you. These protesters at Columbia pointed out last year that they all had the same camping gear, like someone had distributed camping gear to them. Now they're out protesting. They all have well-made shirts, uniforms. They have their head coverings. I mean, they're dressed alike. They look alike. They smell alike. This is a conspiracy that's happening on the streets. Why is it that we pretend that this is real grassroots when it's actually AstroTurf? And who's behind that?
Well, I think you're exactly right. It's an open conspiracy, and the funding is now finally being revealed. It's Students for Justice in Palestine, which has been receiving foreign funds for quite some time. And you're right, the camping equipment is all alike. The literature is almost all the same. The outfits are the same. Everyone's got a keffiyeh now. And the fact is, it's a foreign funded to a large extent effort to undermine U.S. higher education. And I think that as the more comes to light, and we have an administration with the guts to say, you know what, universities, you had best regain control of your campuses, administer to the safety of your students, or the federal government will pull your federal funding, and we'll find out how many students really want to go to your school. Columbia just received a letter, March 13th, saying you have been in violation of civil rights laws, and you will take action or to save your funding, to save your federal funding to the tune of $400 million, or we will step in and perhaps cut off even more funding. It's a wonderful letter. It's a wonderful wake-up call to the universities, and I'm hoping that many other universities will follow suit. I predict that they will.
Dr. Stanley K. Originally, the name of the book is DEI Exposed. Again, he's a full professor of strategic management at Drexel University, doctorate master's in international relations security from Duke University, international MBA from Temple University. So he's a smart fellow on the show, making all of us smarter because he joins us. Dr. Stanley Richley, I appreciate you hopping on. Welcome back to the show anytime. We'll have you back on. He's been hanging out there all morning. He got there early before the show even was kicking off. Wanted to make sure, probably scouting the neighborhood. You know, when you hear that producer Chad and Lakey are unleashed, roaming on the Google somewhere, you got to kind of get out there and scout it out and make sure it's safe to be in that neighborhood, especially producer Chad with his working elves. We can't call them midgets. I'm being told again, we can't call them midgets. So his working elves. We got elves. All right, ladies and gentlemen, before I go to our next guest, you know Steve Laffey. He joins us every week at this time. I want to remind you, if you are thinking now, today's the last day of winter, tomorrow's the first day of spring, you're in the Colorado area, I want to remind you about 1hourheatandair.com/Jimmy Lakey. 1 Hour Heating and Air Conditioning. Corey Clinton and the team there are the absolute best. This is who I use at the House of Lakey. They're the ones that ventilated the Cigar Palace for me. They're the ones that keep me comfortable all year round. And you need to use them as well. It's time to start having those tune-ups. I know it's a little cooler, and there's blizzard warnings in the Midwest, etc. But if you're in Colorado, when it starts to warm up, you're thinking, okay, I want to make sure that air conditioning is ready to go, running as effective and efficiently as you can. You got to go to 1 Hour Heating and Air Conditioning, 1hourheatandair.com/Jimmy Lakey or 855-1-HOUR. Have them come do the tune-up, if you would, and they just kind of look at your system, and it's been lying dormant all winter, make sure that it's ready to rock and roll for the hot days of summer that are forthcoming. Tomorrow, the first day of spring, it's a great time to get on your calendar to call 1 Hour Heating and Air Conditioning, 855-1-HOUR, anywhere up and down that I-25 corridor from, let's say, Windsor, Wellington, Fort Collins, head on down over to Greeley. Hello, Greeley, how are you? If you're out by the Denver International Airport, Fort Lupton, name it. Where's another fort? We got forts everywhere. If wherever you're at, Boulder, hey, Denver, Aurora, they'll keep you cool in the hot days of summer when the Trinidad Araguans are going crazy in Aurora. All right. 1hourheatandair.com/Jimmy Lakey, 855-1-HOUR. All right, as we do every week at this time, again, I'm consistently, as I was with my last guest, 4 minutes off schedule. He joins us 8:30 Mountain Time, 10:30 Eastern Time. It's now 34 after the hour. It's Mr. Steve Laffey. Good morning, Steve. How are you?
Jimmy, what a great show. I'm glad I came in early. I'm in a car, unfortunately, but Mr. Wrigley, Professor Wrigley is just, he's right on it. And those statistics people should know, along with the fact that I've got to call 1 Hour Heating and Air. They put my system in, and they come for everything, by the way. They come for the plumbing. They come, and they're going to come in a couple of weeks to get me going. So I'm excited. I got the Jimmy Lakey special, and everybody should do that.
They do. And, you know, people say, first of all, people say, do you ever shop around and go to someone else? I say, no, because I trust these guys. I know they'll take care of me. And nothing else matters is the fact that I will be taken care of. It'll be done right. And that's why I use them. And I'm glad that you use them. But so many of my friends are learning. I had a friend that didn't listen to me. He said, oh, they were a little bit more expensive. I went with someone else. And then afterward, he's like, crap, I should have gone with your guy because my guy wasn't that good. I said, I told you should listen to me all the time. Listen to Lakey and Laffey. Listen to both of us.
That's right.
Where are you headed? Are you in Colorado, sir? You were trekking about the country.
I am on I-25. We're heading down. I got my two youngest girls in the car. They have a break from CSU. They graduate. One of them heads off to Rwanda, not to join you necessarily, but she heads to Rwanda for the Peace Corps. The other's off to advanced graduate degree in Paris. But for now, I'm spending the week with them, just hanging out. We're going to take photos. We're going to go have lunch. We're going to go get them some nice clothes. I'm just doing it all day long.
Just be careful. It's Denver, sir. That's it'd be dangerous down there. They got Venezuelans roaming the streets.
I rarely go, but we're going to go. We finally will go. Once a year, I head down toward Denver. Most of the times, I take a left out of Fort Collins and head toward Wyoming.
That's probably a smarter move. If you're thinking of your spring break plans in Denver, maybe Colorado, but I maybe avoid Denver. It's run by putzes and idiots and homeless, and I think you have to have defecation on the streets. It's not pleasant in many places in downtown. All right, Steve Laffey, let's dive into this. I liked your stories you sent me this morning. One of those is we seem to be getting back to normalcy. For instance, we were all told we had to drive electric vehicles all the time. And then Elon Musk, who is the glory boy of the American left and the green new energy, he dared to side with President Trump. And now all these celebrities are getting rid of their Teslas and they're going back to gasoline. Evidently, the electric vehicle was not all that important after all.
No, it's wonderful to watch. And what comes out of it, though, is the desperation when things go back to normal. Start up some coal plants, right? and maybe produce a lot more oil and get in a big, like I'm driving an Expedition Max right now, you know, I got a large family. And but Al Gore is in desperation mode, right? So the people like Al Gore are putting out op-eds in the Wall Street Journal. I don't know why they take them, but they're things like, hey, everybody, these developments of, you know, getting out of the Paris Treaty couldn't come at a worse time. And here's the thing about statistics, folks, that doesn't always come up. He cites that over the last 10 years, the global warming has increased $350 billion of cost in the world economy. Folks, the world economy is $115 trillion, not billion. Take 0.35 billion, divide by 115, you've got 0.3% added to the cost of, if there is any global warming, which I don't think there is, it's a minute number. Yet, Al Gore comes through the rest of the column all the time. This is what these people do. They talk about businesses and sustainability and social justice. And it goes throughout the whole column. There's only one number, the $350 billion number that we think is bogus. But he's trying to save his business. He's trying to save his consulting. He's trying to save his investments, which are going down steadily. And you're going to see a lot more desperation as I think the Trump administration and other people around the world, in Germany, everywhere, will go back to somewhat normal as we make a transition normally to some other types of energy with part of what we do. Remember, Toyota had it right. Subaru had it right. The famous quote from Toyota was, we kind of give people what they want. They didn't build any electric cars. Not like the dunces at Ford and General Motors, who were sycophants to Biden and now sycophants to Trump. At least they're on the right side now, not going to lose maybe tens of billions of dollars or $40,000 a F-150 to build an electric one.
I'm wondering, you know, I don't know why Al Gore is so panicked. I'm sure he's made enough money off of carbon buybacks and things like that. I think Al could probably be retired on a beach somewhere, but, you know, he sees that gravy train floating down the river, and he's like, I want to say a part of that. These guys are charlatans. It's kind of like the Al Sharptons, the Rainbow Coalition. I think Dr. Ridgely, they all found a way to make money off of kind of a false crisis.
And really off the backs of hardworking middle-class people who got totally hosed by what Professor Wrigley was talking about just now, by global warming hoaxes, by electric cars, by what happened to used cars in the pandemic, what also happened when no one would admit, as I talked to you on April 20 or February or March of 2020, when we talked about how the Chinese virus, later called COVID, actually came out of a lab. And now it's starting to come out more and more that it did. And yet no punishment for Z, no punishment for China, communist China, and everybody's sort of living with it because they all wanted to placate communist China. And that hurt the middle class even worse.
Yeah, you sent me the story from the Wall Street Journal print edition. Nobody wants the COVID truth. I want the COVID. I'm glad that not just that it came from a lab. I'm glad that the lies of Dr. Fauci, all these people have been exposed. I just want somebody to pay the price for it. I want there to be some accountability. I don't see that coming for whether it's communist China or any of these clowns that Joe Biden pardoned. There's going to be no accountability. but they did a lot of damage.
They did a lot of damage, and I hope, well, listen, I don't think the electric pen that Trump talked about is going to fly, but at least he's talking about it, right? Like Fauci should be brought up on charges. He knew the truth. He didn't do the right thing as a government official, and he sacrificed millions of people on the altar of political correctness, and he knew it came out of a lab, I believe. I think they all did. How would I know? How would I have tapes of being on your show and other shows after watching microbiologists talk about how it couldn't possibly have come from monkeys and it had to come out of a lab, and there is one in Wuhan? I mean, how could we not know this? And why wouldn't that have been, if that had been front and center of Donald Trump's campaign, he would have won re-election. If he had gone out, we should have went after them the way they went after big tobacco, which was wrong. We should have went after China and put their treasuries in abeyance to pay victims of the Chinese virus. Why didn't we do that?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of questions, isn't there? The history books will write it. Very quickly, Steve, I want to go to this other story. You sent me a headline. Most people didn't say, only you would check a website called Notes from Poland. But it's Poland votes to suspend participation in the Treaty on Conventional Armed Forces in Europe. This one caught your attention. Tell me why.
Well, Poland and other countries that face up with Russia and Belarus have gotten out of a couple of treaties to do with armed forces and to do with landmines. So they're going to put landmines everywhere as they buttress themselves for the coming invasion. After Russia gets done with Ukraine, if that's the way it goes, they think they're coming for all of Europe. So take the next step, though. And I want to be very clear, because I know there's a lot of people listening think Trump was going to handle the Ukraine thing in 24 hours or it's not being handled. And the other countries know it. And so what's happening all across Europe is that Poland is going to get, one way or the other, nuclear weapons. So if you're okay with that, everybody, and they're not USA nuclear weapons that they put on the land for them, if everybody's okay with that, then Germany's going to get them. France already has them. And here's what's about to happen. And this is why the UK stock market, the German stock market are going up, and we're kind of going down. There's a big translation happening across the ocean where now they're getting their act together militarily. They're going to spend $600 billion. Germany's off their debt break. And guess where they're going to buy it from? Germans. The French buy it from the French. If you have an investment in someone who makes F-35s or Lockheed, you got a problem because they're not going to buy it there anymore. You're going to see a massive defense buildup in Europe. And the last couple of times we had that, oh, yeah, that's right. When the Germans got going, we had world wars. So as long as everybody's okay with everybody having their own nuclear weapons, and I'll tell you another thing, if this thing's not settled soon, you watch. I said on your show that if I were the Ukrainians a couple of years ago, they're not defending Russia. I would move it and take part of Russia. They did. Always think of what you would do. If I was running Ukraine, I'd get some nuclear weapons and say I have them. And I think that's going to happen. You heard it here first.
Let's back up. How do we get to this point? Obviously, NATO is there, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and yet Trump has been pointing out, hey, why are we putting all the money in NATO and why are you Europeans not pitching in? They changed that. Are the Europeans real serious about their defense? I mean, they obviously have Big Brother USA back there, but to have to be begged and shamed to pay into the NATO fund like they're supposed to, and to put in part of their own GDP into their own defense, they won't even do that. I mean, it's like the Europeans are just asking for trouble for decades.
Yes, and let's put it this way. Trump did a good job cajoling people in his first term to increase defense spending, and they started to. And if he had had a second term, if he hadn't screwed up the shutdowns, and what you and I talked about this, and I was right about this, he would have had a second term, and I think it would have gotten up to 3 or 4%. And I don't believe he ever would have got out of Afghanistan. Remember, I said on your show all the time, he keeps saying he's going to. He knows he should, and it's only $20 billion a year. Almost nobody's dying. He won't get out, and he didn't. But when Biden got out in a disastrous way because he was the worst president ever in the history of America, Putin went in and thought he had a better force. He doesn't. He has a terrible force. In fact, let's put it this way. Putin is lost. No matter how you slice it, everybody, Putin lost. And so what's happening now is Trump is going back. It's two things. It's the tariffs, which the people in Europe are like, okay, we can't do this anymore. The people right now in Canada, up near Quebec, There are people sitting around saying no matter what happens with these tariffs, we've got to unload aluminum somewhere else. We ain't shipping it all to America anymore. We're not giving them the break. Within a year, I want this stuff in Europe. I want it in Asia. They're the low-cost producer. It's happening all throughout Europe. And this is the mistake Donald Trump's making. He should have kept cajoling, right? Instead of going back and forth, because now Pandora's box is open. Since 1945, Jimmy, when we decided that we would build up our military and bail them out in Europe, and they would obey us basically, and we would protect the waterways, the oceans. It benefited America overall, yet we paid too much for their defense. I get it. And now it's all unraveling the way it did before World War I, and in some ways the way it did before World War II. And you watch, when Germany gets a nuclear weapon, you're not going to like it.
Yeah. Steve Laffey, always a pleasure. Enjoy shopping with your daughters today. Be safe on the streets of Denver. Keep your eye out for a little dweeby mayor named Mike Johnson. He's probably looking for a fight with Tom Homan. And watch out for those Venezuelans. I think they've already been shipped out.
Watch out for them.
All right.
Ship them back. Thanks, Jimmy.
God bless you, my friend. Be safe. Steve Laffey, SteveLaffey.com. SteveLaffey.com joins us every week at this time. And boy, we've had smart fellows on the show so far today, haven't we? And that makes producer Chad and I feel a heck of a lot better. All right, let me go back through some of this news stories. And I just want to point out to you a couple of things happening around America. The JFK assassination files have been released. We're going to be digging into it. I've read to you some of the things that are in there, but it looks like you have some real, as probably not unexpected, but maybe the depth and the breadth of it are shocking, that the CIA had a lot of tentacles, let's say, in assassination programs, and they were at war behind the scenes with the JFK administration because the CIA did not want any checks and balances, and they were operating unchecked. So that is one of the highlights that's coming out of the JFK assassination files, is that the CIA was really let's just say had some tentacles involved, and people are still digging through 80-something thousand pages of things. But it looks like the CIA had a lot of secret operations programs, and there was a lot more contact. Remember, they told us that Lee Harvey Oswald was just some little dweeb, but we knew there was something more. He lived in Russia. He tried to go to Cuba. He married a Russian woman, and somehow, even at the height of the Cold War, he was somehow allowed back into the country. And you're like, that seems to maybe have been a red flag. Well, there might have been much more interaction with certain agencies with Lee Harvey Oswald than others. But anyway, there's a lot of material that's being dissected today. A lot of smart people are going through it, and I'm going to keep you posted on it. I was just reading what was available as of late last night, that the CIA had a program called Zrifle, Z-R-R-I-F-L-E, ZR Rifle. And it's a covert operation that was trained and designed for black ops assassinations, false flag operations, and assassinations. And they were fighting with the White House at the time about the unchecked power of the CIA. The CIA created phony 201 files, forging backdated identities of operatives, ensuring no traceable connections to official agencies. The operation mirrors techniques used in other Cold War era assassinations, including removal of foreign leaders who opposed U.S. interests. The program the CIA program coincided with high-level CIA conflicts with JFK, especially after he fired CIA Director Allen Dulles following the Bay of Pigs. So you see, this blood had been brewing between the JFK administration and the CIA operatives. It fits into the larger framework of the Church Committee revelations in 1975, which exposed illegal CIA activities, but never revealed the full extent of what was happening during JFK's presidency. So the Church Committee came out in 75. They said, yeah, CIA's been operating a little bit off, but they never went into the depth of it. And here's why one blogger says this changes everything. For decades, the U.S. government denied any connection to rogue intelligent actions around the time of Kennedy's assassination. The files now prove that this was all a lie told to you by the government. We now know from the files, according to people reading it, they were recruiting criminals and spies for covert missions. The CIA was running off-the-books assassination programs. They planned for false flags cover-ups if things went south. They even had the storylines written of which countries they were going to blame it on. If things went south, it's their fault. They did it. They were also operating without any oversight at the exact time of JFK's murder. And this person says, we're still digging through the files. This is only what we found so far. More secrets are waiting to be uncovered. Stay tuned. This is history in the making. Kids, this is going to get real interesting. And again, 60 years, it's such a big problem that the CIA, you can say, committed a coup, according to some speculation, back at the assassination of John F. Kennedy, and took out a personal vendetta because he was wanting to trim their agency and have more oversight. And it's going to be very interesting what people continue to find in these 80,000 plus documents. So that's what we know so far. Elon, thank you, brother Elon. If you're watching the show, you rescued those astronauts up there. What does it tell you about Joe Biden? That and why was this not more widely reported? People thought that Donald Trump was crazy when he said they were left up there for another reason. Now it's turned out that it was political. Joe Biden left these astronauts stranded up there. Elon Musk went to him when the Boeing craft broke and said, hey, we can get them home within a matter of a couple of weeks, maybe a month or so at the most. You want us to go get them? And Joe Biden's administration said, no, we don't want you to do that. We don't want you to do that. Jeff says in the chat room, you see it on the screen, where's the Biden as of late? They have had more Bigfoot sightings. I think when Biden left the White House, I would not be surprised. He was so heavily medicated to perk him up. I wouldn't be surprised if they cut. I'm being serious. It's tragic. What they did to him was elder abuse, and I would not be surprised if they cut his meds and he's sitting there with his mouth gaping and drool coming out half the time. Probably has some lucid moments, but again, he was so heavily medicated just to operate 2 or 3 hours a day that I'm guessing the medication is not being administered nearly as much. And there's a lot of, say, downtime for old Joseph Robinette Biden. So anyway, but that evil man, that stupid, self-defecating man, Joe Biden, who was abused by his wife and everybody else who just propped him up there as a political pawn, left these astronauts up there. Why would they leave them up there? They did not want Elon Musk to go rescue them because Elon Musk had identified as a pro-Donald Trump person at the time, and they did not want Elon Musk to get any credit because therefore it looked like that Donald Trump had surrounded himself with a better team, and Donald Trump can get stuff done when Joe Biden couldn't. And that's why Joe Biden, it's coming out now, left those astronauts up there. They did not have to be up there that long. And that just shows you the sickness in the heart of this man and the modern day Democrats. The other story I think is fascinating. I just want to get to, and I'll put it up here, furries in Texas. Anybody hear of the furries? We talked about this early in the show, and I told you I'd get back to it. Furries are when a mentally deficient, mentally ill child that needs psychotherapy or extra attention, at least, dresses up like a cat or a dog, and they want to go to school. They're called furries. They wear costumes, and they supposedly identify as those creatures. Well, furries, some school districts have allowed furries. You can come to school and identify and wear your furry outfit, and you do that. And it was brought up in Colorado 3 years ago in our last gubernatorial election when our idiotic governor, Jared Polis, was running for re-election. Heidi Ganahl, his very competent and capable competitor as a Republican, said, hey, there are school districts out there that are really distracted. Their test scores suck, but guess what? They're allowing furries to be in the classroom. And Jared Polis gaslit. And he said, little lady, why don't you run for the school board? There's no such thing as furries. They don't exist. They don't exist. Well, this is the same governor who told you Trende Aragua was not in Aurora, Colorado. Colorado, I need you to pay attention to me. Read the words that are coming off of my mouth. Jared Polis is a liar. Jared Polis lied to you about furries when Heidi Ganahl pointed it out, and he lied to you about Trende Aragua. He gaslights anything that will expose his idiotic, feckless, foolish, failed administration and point out the fraud that he is. Anything that will point that out, he will gaslight and say it doesn't exist. Are there gangs taking over apartment complexes in Aurora? Oh, no, there's nothing to see here. Move right along. President Trump doesn't even need to come to do a rally in Aurora because there's nothing to see here. There's a lot to see here. President Trump was right, and Jared Polis is a liar. He gaslit on the furries when Heidi Ganahl said they existed in the classroom, and he gaslit on Trende Aragua. You say, why are you talking about furries today? Well, because I'm in Texas, and there is a bill running through the legislature because Texas is not run by a fool. Texas is not run by a foolish, fat, rich guy that just wants to throw tantrums and get his way and throws money around and tries to buy victories all the time. A Texas bill known as the Furries Act would ban non-human behaviors in public schools, including the uses of litter boxes and animal-wearing accessories. This is from the local Fox affiliate here. The bill prohibits students from presenting themselves as anything other than human, with exemptions for events like Halloween. Students who violate the law could face suspension, expulsion, placement in juvenile justice education program. Educators who fail to enforce the law could face fines with penalties at $10,000. This is a new bill to ban non-human behaviors in public schools that are commonly associated with furries. The legislation combines a wide range of prohibited behaviors, from using a litter box, wearing animal ears, and even leashes. You know why? Because here in the state of Texas, they're not run by an idiot who doesn't gaslight. If they have a problem with mentally ill children or attention-seeking children, they're going to face it, man up, face it in the eye, and say, we're not going to have that type of behavior. If you want to wonder why the public school system in the great state of Colorado is failed so much, is because we have a governor who won't face the problems that these young people are facing right up front. He won't face the dangers on the streets with Tren de Aragua. He won't face the failing education program. He won't stand up to this perversion called furries. And in matter of fact, he will gaslight you and tell you it doesn't exist. But in the state of Texas, they're facing it head on and saying, hey, we're not going to allow this in our classrooms. And so once again, to the motherland, Texas, I say congratulations for facing the problem that our governor in Colorado is so intellectually bankrupt and so morally bankrupt that he can't even admit that it's a problem. He instead talked down to Heidi Ganahl and was condescending to her that she ever decided to bring up the topic of furries. And he denied that it was a problem, and yet it is a problem. And at least Texas has the courage to admit they have a problem, and they're going to fix it with legislation. What problem has Jared Polis in the state of Colorado fixed with legislation? Has he fixed anything? Is there any part of Colorado that's better because of the grimy little hands of Jared Polis on this state? I mean, Jared Polis won't even admit that he's got a problem with a husband named Marlon. I mean, he won't admit that we have problems with wolves. He won't admit that he's unleashed hell and damage onto this state. And when I come to another state and I realize that they're willing to have a grown-up conversation about how do we make our public schools better? How do we make our kids get more focused on education? One of the things, we're going to get rid of the damn distractions in the classroom, and we're going to address this furry phenomenon. And yet in Colorado, we don't have a governor. You don't have a governor that's willing to really face the problems. Instead, he's just looking for more problems that he can create. There, I got that off my chest. I feel better. It's just so fun. Every news story I hear the last week that I've been here has been about the furry legislation, and they've got to ban the furries here because their education is not producing the results that they want. They're not producing the results they want. All right, ladies and gentlemen, last day of winter. And tomorrow's the first day of spring. All right, yeah, but let's see. I did my Jared Polis piece. I feel good about that. I've got other topics I want to get to, but again, I'm broadcasting from the great state of Texas. Down here, my mother's having some issues, getting older, and helping out with some of those situations, and I'll be back at home before I know it in Colorado. But for now, I am here. There's a story I want to get to tomorrow. Colorado is looking at a law, and I'm sure Jared Polis is going to sign it, because Jared Polis is what? Does nothing to make Colorado better. New Colorado law is going to fast track driver's licenses for illegal immigrants. It was a state law in 2024 made it easier and faster for illegals to obtain a license. It goes into effect March the 31st. So the law's already there. It was approved by a majority of Democrats last year, and it was signed into law by Jared Polis. So again, Colorado, they gaslight you. We're not a sanctuary state. There's no Tren de Aragua. Yes, there is. There's no Venezuelan gangs taking over building. Jared Polis, you're a liar. There's no furries in schools. Jared Polis, you're a liar. We're not a sanctuary state. We don't have sanctuary policies. Hell, not only do we not have sanctuary policies, we have a bill that goes into effect in 2 weeks in which it's going to fast track every illegal alien from being able to be that's not lawfully present in the U.S. It's going to fast track them getting a Colorado driver's license. It goes into effect March 31st. You know why? Because Jared Polis has betrayed the state of Colorado, and Jared Polis never, ever, ever needs to be taken seriously as a serious candidate of any legitimacy when it comes to his national ambitions. America, I'm warning you on the Lakey Unleashed Streamcast. Jared Polis is he's been a danger to the state of Colorado for the last many years, and he's destroyed many great parts of it. And anybody, if he ever runs and he says we're not a sanctuary state, he signed a bill fast tracking illegals getting their driver's license even quicker, even though they're not legally here. Tell me that's not aiding and abetting the. Tell them it's not aiding it. Oh, by the way, and don't forget, we have what's called auto vote here. So supposedly, they're supposed to differentiate whether or not you can cast a ballot with your driver's license. In other words, non-citizens are not supposed to do that. However, remember a couple of years ago, they had to announce, hey, if you're an illegal and we gave you a driver's license, we need you to return that and give you a new one. We forgot to mark do not vote on there. So they've already screwed it up before in this process, and now they're going to make it faster and faster and faster. Again, America, if you ever hear the name Jared Polis, you need to know that Jared Polis will destroy America in the same way he has brought Colorado down in 7 years. I've been here almost 30 years. I was a young wee tyke when I got to Colorado. And I'll tell you, Jared Polis has done more damage in his 7 going on 8 years now than any time previous in the previous 23 years. That's how bad he is. And story after story, I owe it to you to tell you about that. Let me remind you, if you want to move to Aurora, Colorado, you want to move to Boulder, it's a great place to live, and Jared Polis will not be running the state forever, and so there is reason to hope for better times. I want you to remember Sherry Cree, homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com. Here's what you're going to know. This is the perfect time of year. Tomorrow's the first day of spring. People start thinking, buying, selling real estate. Listen, if your house is ready to, right now, inventory is kind of low. If your house is ready to go and you think it's ready to go, call Sherry. Have a consultation with homeswithsherry.com. She can help you staging and tell you how to get it perfectly ready for it. And if you're ready to go, you can oftentimes get better, quicker sell and even more top dollars because the inventory is low. Now, if you've noticed that you're trying to buy a home and you're like, man, the inventory is low, just talk to Sherry. Homes with Sherry, Sherry Cree, homeswithsherry.com, and tell her what you're looking for. Tell her what area you're looking for. Tell her your requirements, and she can start putting together that search, the list for you. And as homes come up on the market, she can make sure you are aware of it. She doesn't just want to be a part of this transaction with you. She wants to be your realtor for life. And that's a big commitment. She wants to serve so well and do such a great job for you now that in the future, when you say, oh, well, we need another bedroom. Oh, we need to go to a different school district. Oh, we got to transfer. We have to change neighborhoods or move out of state. Who do we call? There's no question in your mind. She wants you to know that she's the one you call. She above and beyond white glove service, and I can attest to it. And you just need to make a call if you're contemplating a buy or sell. If you're in Wellington, if you're in Windsor, if you're in Fort Collins, if you're in Denver, if you're in Boulder, if you're in, we joke now about the city of Aurora because they gaslit us so much about it. If you're in Parker, wherever you are at in that I-25 Castle Rock up north corridor, homeswithsherry.com. Again, consultation, conversation, and now is the perfect time to either list your home or start looking for a home and get in there before what I call the summer rush hits. Homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com. Reach out to her now, homeswithsherry.com. You see her photo there on the screen, and make sure you tell her that you heard about her on the Jimmy Lakey Show, homeswithsherry.com. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to play our meme roulette game as I'm broadcasting for the area of Dallas-Fort Worth. I can look out the window. I see the Six Flags over Texas. There's the Globe Life Stadium for the Texas Rangers. I grew up in this area. It's kind of wild to see all that over there. The ballpark at Arlington, I see that over there as well. The ballpark at Arlington is now called the Choctaw Stadium. I don't know what they do, but it's right next to Globe Life, and I'm not exactly sure the difference, but it's there. And then Jerry World, the AT&T Stadium's right over there as well. I don't see that one. That's covered up by some buildings, but I can see the baseball fields from here. But anyway, I'll be here for several more days, and then I'll be back in the Colorado studio as soon as possible. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to play meme roulette. Round and round the world we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Let's go. Round. I don't have my globe. Round and round the world we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Ladies and gentlemen, here's your first meme of the day. Conservatives can't define woke, shouts a leftist who can't define man or a woman. You don't even know what woke means. Well, you don't know what a man or woman is. Yeah, true. Well, here we go. Round around the world we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Rock and roll. Oh, here's another one. For some reasons, when Biden was firing federal workers for refusing vaccines, not one Democrat spoke up. But when you're firing federal workers for wasting taxpayer money, it's the end of the democracy as we know it, according to Democrats. Yeah, let that one sink in. All these people who are squawking about the federal workers, the USAID, you can't close down an agency. These people will be unemployed. Listen, it happens in the private sector all the time. And if you were so worried about federal workers losing their job, why were you not standing up for them when they were being fired for refusing a vaccine? Doug Giles, we stole that from you. We left your website right there. Round and round the world we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Boom. Oh, there it is. Babylon B, we steal from the federal judge, orders astronauts be returned to space. Did that judge is out again? That judge in D.C. Trump says they should impeach him, and I guess John Roberts says that's not the right course of action, but at least contemplate. Some of these judges are outrageous, but Republicans actually have no one to blame for themselves because they confirmed a bunch of Biden judges right at the end of his administration. They shouldn't have done that. All right, I think we have a couple of more memes, perhaps. Round and round the world we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Oh, here we go. This is me. Every time I see an electric car. I'll explain that to you later. See, you got to read the caption at the bottom. Some of you, I don't get it. This is one big pile. I don't know. I've never wanted an electric car, but if I was in the market, I'd buy a Tesla right now, just because. I'd buy a Tesla just to support brother Elon. And by the way, if you're looking at an electric car, that is the best looking of them all. I have a friend who drives an electric Blazer, and he didn't like it's a good looking car. And the only reason he drives it is because they were giving so much rebate that he pays like $100, paid $100 for it for a lease. They were giving so many rebates because no one wanted the thing. All right, do I have any more memes? Here we go. Round and round the world we go. Do we have any more memes to steal from where no one knows? When your buddy tops his tee shot right in front of the card girl. This meme of George W. Bush at the Trump inauguration. That's the gift that keeps on giving. There have been so many good memes come off of that little look of George W. Bush there. It's a great meme, the gift that keeps on giving. I believe we have milked the meme machine dry. Am I right, producer Chad? Round and round the world we go. We have no more memes to steal from where no one knows. Yeah, we milked it dry. Ladies and gentlemen, it's like the teat of a well-milked cow. It's all done. I'm not don't forget Rivers Promise Casino Gala. It's coming up May the 17th at the Omni Interlaken Resort. Love to have you there. It's presented by our friends Budget Home Supply in Longmont. If you're in the northern Colorado area and you're looking to do some remodeling, maybe some decks, some outside spring work, go to Budget Home Supply in Longmont. Locally family owned and operated for a couple of generations now, and they would love to take care of you. And they're the title presenter of our Casino Gala. It's going to be a fantastic night, May the 17th. Make it a staycation if you want to. There's great rooms and a block available to our organization on that night. But it's Rivers Promise Casino Gala. It's all for fun. It ain't gambling. We ain't going to Vegas. It's just all for fun. A poker tournament and things like that. It's just going to be a great door prizes given out. Lots of great food, cash bar available, and some live music as well. Go register, riverspromise.org, riverspromise.org. All right, once again, I am still in the Dallas area. I will be here for a couple of more days at least, and I think I have a few more trips in my future. Sabrina says, keeping your mother lifted in prayer. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm sure she will also. Ladies and gentlemen, until we meet again tomorrow morning, I should be back here in this lovely hotel room. It's been my life for about a week now. Ladies and gentlemen, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. May God bless you. I'll be back tomorrow morning. Follow me. Follow me on the Facebook, facebook.com/Jimmy Lakey fan page. Facebook.com/Jimmy Lakey fan page. Twitter is @Jimmy Lakey. Everything else just my name. Rumble. Hello, Rumble. I hope you're doing well out there. I miss all of you. Didn't see much Rumble conversation today. Our rumblers were not rumbling. A lot of Facebook interaction today as well. Hey, God bless you. God bless America. I am Jimmy Lakey. Go tell the world about the show and have them tune in as well. Jimmy Lakey, peace. I'm out of here.